What is up, guys? This is Nightmare, and today I have a new build video for you all. This is my Magicka Sorcerer PvP build. Name of this build is going to be called Sempiternum, which stands for forever, or lasting forever in Latin. It's a pretty cool name. The idea behind that name is, with this build we are able to sustain for a very, very long time. Almost infinite sustain with the sets we are wearing, while weaving in heavy attacks and a couple resto heavy attacks is also going to help our sustain. We also have insane burst with this build. One of the key things with playing Magicka Sorcerer, it's not really about how much stats you have, how much max magic or how much spell damage you can have, but it's all about comboing your abilities together, timing them perfectly, having them all hit together, and getting insane burst. With this build, I'm able to pretty much one-shot tanks with their really high resistance, and pretty much able to do a 25k plus burst with the proper damage combo. So along with that, how we are getting this much burst is with one of our sets we're getting spell damage, we're getting sustain from our second set, and we are also getting a percent damage additive or multiplier, which is gonna buff our damage output percentagely, if that makes sense. So before I start with the build, I just wanted to go over a few things with the channel. This is my Magicka Sorcerer. Like I said, I got other builds on my channel. I'm trying to stay off meta builds, trying to do things that other people aren't doing. And with that, I have to do lots of testing. I have to get tons of different sets, test them out, and as you can tell, I don't even make my sets gold because I just can't afford it. And I have officially ran out of gold. So I've been farming raw materials. If any of you guys are interested in buying raw materials, please let me know. I'll try to sell them at fair prices. However, like I said, I am in desperate need of gold and material. Or if anybody would just like to donate material or gold to me, that would be freaking fantastic. Anything to help support me, support the channel. The more support I get in-game will allow me to put more builds out on my channel. Okay, so with that, let's get right into the builds. Okay guys, so to start off this build, as always, I'm going to go over my gear and my sets first. First set I'm going to be running is the Martial Knowledge set. So what Martial Knowledge does, it's going to give me a little bit of max magicka, 2 spell damage bonuses, and then the 5 piece is something that I've been really wanting to do on a Magicka Sorcerer for the longest time. And just recently I was able to get a sharpened Martial Knowledge Inferno Staff, so I was finally able to make this build work. So what the 5 piece bonus does, as you can see here, you can read for yourself, but whenever you deal damage, you cause the enemy to take 10% additional damage from the next attack, and this can occur every 4 seconds. So this is very good solo, because you're going to be the only one damaging that target. You're able to make sure that your hardest hitting ability, which is going to be your fragment, your crystal frag, gets that 10% additional damage, or your meteor, or whatever. So the idea here is to hit like 20k crystal frags when you do your full damage combo. And then again, like I said, this can occur every 4 seconds. So usually how I will combo this is I will stay defensive until I get a fragment proc. If I can get one to proc, there we go. And then as soon as I get the fragment to proc, I will curse, light attack. Light attack will proc the Martial Knowledge on them, and then I throw a fragment. So the fragment will get the 10% additional damage from Martial Knowledge. The curse doesn't, because it doesn't do damage right away. But you're able to proc your Martial Knowledge 5 Ps by doing light attack. So light attack weaving is very important for this build. Okay, so Sharpen's Inferno is still probably going to be best in slot for the next patch, which is going to be the Horns of the Reach. I still think Sharpened is going to be very good for PvP, because penetration is always good. If Sharpened isn't best in slot, then Nerntoned will be, but I don't think Nerntoned's Martial Knowledge staves drop. So Sharpened is good. If you can't get Sharpened to drop, Precise will also work. So this is going to be our front bar. Our 5-piece bonus is going to be active on the front bar only for martial knowledge. And then, of course, our second 5-piece bonus is going to be active on the back bar. I have a Resto Staff of the Lich. You can run poisons if you want on this bar. I run a increased weapon and spell damage enchant on the front bar to get increased spell damage, since I'm light attack weaving and doing most of my attacks there. And then I'm doing heavy restos on here, on the Resto Staff bar, so I have a chance to proc poisons. However, I haven't been using poisons. I feel like my sustain is good enough that I don't need it. So I have a sharpened Lich Resto. You would ideally want a defending or a precise or powered. The reason why it's not that big of a deal, though, is because we're shield stacking. So you're not going to get a lot of healing, so powered isn't that big of a deal. Also, shields don't have resistance, so defending isn't going to really help with shields. Power doesn't help healing, and then precise is just kind of probably would be best choice, or defending, but yeah. So what Lich does, 2 and 4 piece, excuse me, it's going to give you some Magicka recovery, and 3 pieces maximum Magicka. Okay. So as you can see, my 5-piece bonus isn't active right now, but when I switch to my Resto Staff bar, then it'll be active. So I'm sure a lot of you guys know what Lich does. A lot of Magicka Sorcerers use it. It's going to allow you to get an insane Magicka recovery bonus when you drop below 33%. And then it has a 1-minute cooldown, but usually if you're playing properly, you're going to be able to you're only going to drop below 33% when you're spamming abilities or you're trying to stay alive, so it's kind of like an emergency backup. And then usually you'll be able to sustain for another minute until you can get this Lich to proc again. So that's kind of the idea here. If I'm spamming abilities and I'm like at 50% or 40%, I try to do a heavy resto if I can before this procs. So being able to sustain when pressure isn't on me, and saving this proc until I really need it is very important. Yeah, so onto my armor sets I'm wearing. I believe I have 4 pieces of Impin and 3 Divines. I like more Divines, but I still do like a little bit of Impins, just in case if our shields go down, we still have that crit resistance, which it's not a lot, but it does help. And then the rest of Divines is just going to increase our damage output. So we're running a 2-piece monster set. We're able to do that because we have a 5-piece bonus on each bar. So one 5-piece bonus is active on the front bar, and the second 5-piece bonus is active on the back bar. Two monster sets. You can always go with Pirate Skeleton if you feel like you want to be more tanky, but I've been using Infernal Guardian just because it has a lot of damage output. So we get a max Magicka bonus, and then whenever you cast a shield, you have a 50% chance to throw 3 little fire spheres at the target, the furthest enemy. And these 3 are AoE, and they hit very hard. So this is kind of, you can play this into your damage combo very nicely. Now, running a monster set is going to allow us to run 5-1-1, which I am set up to do, but right now I only have a light shoulder. Ideally, this would be medium, and then you can run your 5-1-1 setup. And then I have my martial knowledge pieces here, so I got a chest there, and a belt here. And the armor sets are kind of scattered around, so you can clean them up if you want, like have your armor pieces only active here, and then your lich pieces here. But I just threw on what I had, since, like I said, I don't have a lot of gold to be picky with where I put my sets. So I have an Impin chest, I have a Divine's belt, I have Impin Lich gloves, Divine's Lich legs, and Impin boots, a Lich necklace, and 2 martial knowledge rings. Again, these sets are kind of scattered all over the place. You can clean this up some if you want, like get a martial knowledge necklace here, and then you could take off the martial knowledge chest and put on a Lich chest, or put all Lich jewelry and then put 3 martial knowledge pieces here, whatever you want to do. And then I'm also running 3 spell damage enchants just to increase my damage output. So, like always, I'm going to go over my food I'm using. Right now I'm just using basic blue max health, max magicka food. If you want to use Witch Mother's Potent Brew, you can go ahead and do that. And then I'm also using trash throwaway magic pots and these Essence of Spell Power pots, which is going to give me major sorcery, major prophecy, and restore lots of magicka. And then you can also use the immovable pots, which are also going to be good. The immovable pots pretty much just trade out major sorcery for immovability. Since we already have major sorcery, those pots are very good. Alright, so that pretty much covers over all my slottable items and gear. Next, I will go over my skills. Alright guys, so for pretty much the most important part of the build besides the armor set, we got our skill rotation. So skills are going to be pretty basic, what most Magicka Sorcerers are going to use. So if you play lots of Magic Sorc, you should be used to this setup. And I've tweaked a few things just to make it personally better for me and what I feel to be best. Yeah, so let's get right into the skills. Of course, Crystal Frag. Now, how Crystal Frag works is, like I showed before, you only want to throw your Crystal Fragment when you get a proc. So, when you're casting these Magicka abilities, you get a chance to get these little purple rocks floating around your hands. And you'll also get a indicator above your health bar if you have the new buff tracker. That last one right there that just showed, that's the Crystal Fragment proc. The one on the far left, 543, that one right there is the Crystal Fragment proc. So, just in case, that's another way for you to know if you got the proc or not. And then it also makes a pretty clear sounds. If I can get it to proc for you guys one more time, you can listen to it. Right there. It's a little bit of a high-pitched noise. You also get some purple rocks floating around your hands and buff tracker to make sure you throw your Crystal Frag proc. And you only want to throw the Crystal Frag when it procs. This is going to be your main damage spammable. And you want to really time this very hard because, as you can see, this hits very hard. This hits for fully buffed up. That's a 15k fragment. And it deals 10% more damage when it's procced. And then when we also combo that with Martial Knowledge, that's another 10%. So Crystal Fragments can hit very hard. Next up we have pretty much our main spammable, this is our consistent damage output. Force Pulse. Now Force Pulse is going to be the 3 different damage sources, Flame, Frost, and Shock. It also can apply these Burning, Chilled, and Concussed status effects. This is just for putting consistent pressure on your target. You're mostly trying to combo your damage with the Curse, Fragment, and then Execute combo. That's where most of your burst is going to come from. So, Curse, Haunting Curse, after 3.5 seconds, you get a massive damage burst. As you can see, almost 12k bursts from there. Of course, these are, again, halved in PvP. But that's just your idea how hard these are hitting. And then fully buffed, you can see 13k curse. And then after a 8.5 second delay, you get another curse to blow up, which, as you can see in some gameplay I'll be posting, I'm not sure if I'll post it in the beginning of the video or after. Usually people will not heal up. But this can finish off people pretty nicely. Kind of works as an execute if they're low enough. If they're at like 25% health and the second curse blows up because they forget about it or whatever, the second curse can usually finish off people very nicely. Alright, so Endless Fury. I've been debating on taking this off just because I haven't been getting lots of kills with it in Battlegrounds or in dueling when I was testing the builds, but I feel like in open world PvP, this is going to be very good to just pick off targets and secure kills. So this does a 4k shock damage initial, and then once they drop below 20%, it does an execute that deals 13,000 shock damage. And if you get the kill, you get to restore magic. So this is going to help us sustain our Magicka a little bit better. Whenever we blow up a target and then finish them with an Endless Fury, we get a nice Magicka restore. So the nice thing I like about this is, even if you use this before they drop below 20, you can cast another ability. Like, let's say they're at 25% when I cast this Endless Fury, and then I hit them with a light attack Force Pulse, and that drops them below 20. The execute will still blow up once they get to 20%, and usually when they get to 20%, that explosion, that proc, the execute, is enough damage to finish people off. So the execute Endless Fury is very nice. I love this execute a lot. It does a lot of damage too. So as you can see, we got a lot of like huge damage, but it's kind of delayed, and you have to like time all these perfectly. So we got a 13k execute, we got a 12k delayed burst from Curse, and then we have a 14k crystal frag, and then our spammable can hit for Curse buffed up real quick. That's about 3,600, about 9,000. So cut that in half, we get about 4,500 spammable. And then I like to slot ward on my front bar, hardened wards. This is just going to help my survivability. That's what I'm used to. I play a lot of stamina builds, and when I play stamina builds, I keep rally on my front bar for a burst heal. So that's just what I'm used to. Having a heal or a ward on my front bar. If you're a Magicka Sorcerer and you're experienced with your shield stacking, you can always slot the ward on your back bar and move something to the front bar from the back bar. And then Shooting Star, this is gonna just add pressure to the wounds. As you can see, there are tons of damage. Again, it has like a delay to it, a 2-second or a cast time before it falls. So you cast it, and then it has a few seconds before it hits the target. And usually what I'll do is I proc my fragment with the ward. As soon as I get a fragment proc, I will hit him with a curse. I will ultimate with Shooting Star, light attack fragment, and everything hits at the same time, and I can get a huge burst from there. Shooting Star is going to give us an empower, so I empower the crystal frag too, and I'm also getting the martial knowledge buff also. So very nice damage combo with that. That's usually going to be your main source of kill potential, and with that combo, you don't even have to get people like to half. You can just do that combo from full health, and it'll kill people. So very nice. So for my back bar, I'm using Healing Ward. This is going to be my second ward. Add to also some nice extra healing. My defensive ability, this is going to help me stand on my grounds, is going to be Daedric Mines. I love Daedric Mines. That's just what I'm used to. I know some Magicka Sorcerers don't use this anymore. Back in the day when I used to play Magicka Sorcerer a lot, I used to use this all the time, and I'm just used to using it. So that's my reasons for that. If you don't feel like you need Daedric Mines, use something else, but Daedric Mines is very, very strong, especially in duels and battlegrounds. Streak is going to give us some good mobility, can also streak through targets to stun them. Again, I will show that off in some gameplay of early testing of the builds. Now, Dark Deal. Why do I use Dark Deal? So if you haven't seen my Magicka Nightblade build, I used Leeching Strikes. Now what Leeching Strikes does, if you're not familiar with Nightblade class, Leeching Strikes is a passive or a buff you use whenever you light attack. You restore health and stamina. The other morph restores health and Magicka. So you would think on a Magicka build you would want the Magicka morph that restores Magicka, helps your Magicka sustain. But the issue I find with Magicka builds is, at least for me, is being able to sustain my stamina. I'm used to having a big stamina pool and dodge rolling a lot and being able to break free with no problem. Magicka builds, we have a very small stamina pool, like less than 10k. So being able to sustain that stamina is very important for me. And with one cast of Dark Deal, I can pretty much get myself back from 0 stamina to about half or more. So if I do some dodge rolls or if I'm blocking attacks or whatever, See if I can get to like 0%. Okay, so about 13%, 1.3k stamina, and then with one dark deal, I'm already back up to 71%. So very good. I really like the stamina sustain with dark deal, and it's also a good burst deal. Only downside to this is the cast time, but usually you can streak, get some distance, and then either stun them, do whatever you have to, and then cast your dark deal. And then for my main buff, I'm using Power Surge. I know some people like to use Entropy. I don't like using Entropy because that requires a target to cast the buff onto, and I feel like that's just not my playstyle. But Power Surge, it's going to give us our major sorcery, 20% extra spell damage, and it's also going to give us some nice healing whenever we crit, which is also an upside to that. As we shield stack our healing ward and our hardened ward, below these wards we're going to get some healing. So if we're at like 50% health and we have our wards on, most sorcerer builds are going to stick at that 50% health and just stay there, and they're not going to have any way to get that health back up, and they're just going to have to keep shield stacking. Eventually they're going to get that health down pretty low. However, with Dark Deal and Power Surge is going to give us some nice healing over time. As long as we stay offensive, we can get some heals, and then Dark Deal is also going to give us some good burst heals. And then again, I put Shooting Star on this bar. That's just for a little bit of extra max magicka from Mage's Guild, as you can see here. So I get extra 2%. If you don't want to use Meteor on the back bar, you can use the Rest of Staff Ultimate, which I don't have yet on this character. So for passives, pretty much you take all of them, all your sorcerer passives. Destro Staff passives, you're going to take all those, and Restoration Staff passives, you're taking all those also. Light Armor passives, of course, we're wearing 5 light, so you want all of those. For your Heavy Armor passives, we're going to have 1 heavy, so what it allows us to get our health a little bit higher is Juggernaut passive, so extra 2%. And then Medium Armor passives if you want them. Mage's Guild, you're going to take all these passives if you got Mage's Guild 10. And Shooting Star is going to be, again, the main full health damage burst, pretty much. And then Undaunted level 9, if you can get it, so you can run your 5-1-1. This is going to give us an extra 6% max health, stamina, and magicka. Mine says 4 because I don't have a piece of medium armor right now. And then for my racial choice, I'm High Elf. The reason why I go with High Elf is magic recovery, max magic, and then the extra flame, frost, and shock damage. So Force Pulse is going to hit harder, and our Execute hits harder along with Meteor. You can also go with Breton. Breton's very good. I like Breton just because of the reduced cost and the spell resistance, so they're a bit tankier. Breton's a very good pick if you want to go Vampire because of the spell resistance. Outweighs the extra fire damage taken. And the reduced cost is, in my opinion, better than the magic recovery for Breton. And then for my third racial choice, I would go with the Dark Elf, which Dark Elf is going to have Flame, Frost, and Shock damage. A little bit more flame damage and a little bit less shock and frost damage. They also have 1% less max magicka. They do have some better max stamina though. And resistance to fire, again, would be good for Vampire. For this, right now, I am not a Vampire. I just feel like I don't need Vampire that much for this build. Alright guys, so next off I will go over my champion points and show you my stat sheet. Alright guys, so champion points are going to be very important, especially for this Morrowind patch since they got changed so much. And again, keeping in mind the chunk points or drop points, whatever they're called, pretty much your percentage gets round down. So keeping that in mind. Alright, so first off, we have 51 points into Master at Arms for 19% increased direct damage. This is very good since pretty much everything we do is direct damage. We have no dots, so 19% is going to allow us to hit very hard with our crystal frags. Our initial hit from Meteor, Curse, Execute, all of that hits very hard because Master at Arms. Very good. 64 into Elemental Expert. Usually I try not to go that much higher than 50 points, but for here 64 is good because I get 13%, and I don't get a lot of points wasted. 13.01, so round that down, we get 13%. Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage. Everything we do is we have lots of magic damage and a little bit of Flame, Frost, and Shock damage. 40 into Elfborn for 16% extra crit damage. So I like that. Again, 16.02, so we're only losing that 0.02. A very nice number to get to, 40 right there. And then the rest of my points I just throw into Spell Erosion for just junk points. My throwaway points all go into here for some extra penetration. Next for red, I have 40 into Ironclad. Now I wanted to put a lot into Ironclad for here because I don't really need extra points for resistance. So 16% reduced direct damage taken. This is going to help us survive burst from like Stamina Night Blades or other Magicka Sorcerers. Really, there's a lot of direct damage abilities in PvP because that gives you the most burst and damage potential. So having quite a bit of points into Ironclad is really good. 18 into Thick Skins. I just threw my remainder points into here. And then 56 and 56 into Hardy and Elemental Defender for 12% reduced damage across the board. And then 40 into Bastion. So 40 into Bastion again, 16% of increased shields. Shields are going to be very important for a Magicka Sorcerer. It's going to be pretty much the main source of our survivability. Alright, so moving on to the green tree, this is going to give us some our sustain. So I got 37 into Siphoner. This is going to be like, I always say this poison's built into the champion points, and especially since we're light attack weaving to proc our martial knowledge burst, Siphoner is going to have a really good uptime on our enemies. Okay, so I was having some issues just trying to organize this green tree a little bit more how I wanted it. If you feel like you don't want any points into Mooncalf or anything like that, just throw them into Arcanist. But I have 64 into Arcanist and 64 into Tenacity. This is just going to help my Magicka sustain, Magic recovery 13%, and increased Magicka return from heavy attacks. 5 into Mooncalf for 1% increased stam recovery. I know it's not much, but these were my leftover points, so that's why they were there. 20 into Tumbling. Reduced dodge roll cost is going to be very effective for this build. This is going to allow me to just dodge roll a bit more. Help me survive some damage. And then 20 to Warlord is going to reduce cost to break free. Again, stamina being an issue with Magicka builds, being able to have enough stamina to get out of crowd controlling effects, so Warlord and Tumbling are very important. So that's going to cover my champion points. Next I will go ahead and show you my max stats. So with my major sorcery buff, I'm sitting at 38,000 max Magicka, 23,000 max health. I like the big health pool, however, you could make this lower if you took off this health enchantment. I have all Magicka enchantments on here, and then one health enchant. I just haven't changed that. I kind of like the higher health pool though, so not a big deal for me. And then we have almost 10,000 stamina. We have almost 3,000 spell damage and 32% crit. 1,000 crit resistance. It's a good idea to have crit resistance, like I said, even though we're shield stacking, just in case if we lose our shield, we don't want to get bursted down quick. So a little bit of extra crit resistance is good. Okay, so then we also have 1,200 magic recovery, which is fairly low, but like I said, we got our Lich, and we can also sustain with our heavy attacks. So let me go ahead and show you my magic recovery when it gets, when Lich procs. So if I can just spam my streak into the wall, and we have almost 2,800 magic recovery. If we pop a pot, we get about 3,100. And then we also have 42% crit whenever we pop our Essence of Spell Power pot. And again, 3k spell damage, which is very good. I have all my attribute points into Magicka. I'm using the Apprentice for extra spell damage. when Horns of the Reach gets released, this is going to be increased. And yeah, that's pretty much going to cover all my buff stats. So I think I'm going to put a couple of videos before the video starts. So I will also be posting some videos after this part too. But yeah, if you guys want to see this build in action, definitely check that part out. I usually try to put gameplay of the builds in action because people like to just talk shit about how builds will never work. Like, oh, you don't have enough spell damage, or you don't have enough this. It's like, well, did you watch the gameplay? Did you watch all the people I freaking murdered? Probably not, because you're talking shit. But it's whatever. So that's pretty much gonna cover the builds, my Magicka Sorcerer builds. Sempiternum. I hope you guys enjoyed the build video. If you did, please leave a like and a subscribe for more build videos and gameplay in the future. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the build, or any friendly recommendations on things I could change, anything like that, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to argue with me about how the build sucks, go ahead and do that too, because, yeah, everyone does that, so why not? Alright, so till next time, I will see you all later.